So welcome everybody to the iWISH Talks, a series of talks, as I was mentioning before to the in-person audience, from inspiring women in science and healthcare. It's really great for us to see this room full of people. We were discussing before with the team that we had more than 100 registrations. We have so many people joining online, and we saw also from different countries and different institutions. So this is a really great success for us. Thank you so much for joining and for supporting us with your presence. It's really important. And we are so excited today because we will have this talk with what we defined a rock star of science and healthcare. And but before I introduce her to all of you, I'd like to give you a little introduction about the iWISH team. So we can go to the next slide. So we are, as I was mentioning before, a group of early careers with the mission of really creating a community, a network that inspires and empowers the next generation of leaders, both in academic and non-academic institutions. And we have a really wonderful team of postdocs that organize all of these events with a lot of passion, creativity, and dedication, and they're all here spread in the room, so please stay with us after the talk. And another really important aspect for us is mentorship. So we believe that mentorship, having a good mentorship, is key for successful initiative, and we are so proud to have the support of extraordinary mentors, Joe and Jade, that today are both here with us. And they are really the pillars of this initiative. So I think Joe would like to add something. Would like to say something?
Oh, I just want to. Hi, Nancy. How are you?
Hi, Joe.
It's very
Good to see you.
You too.
So I just want to thank you, Nancy, for being supportive to our iWISH trainees here. I think you can see by the room and also by the people on the Zoom that a lot of people are looking forward to having an intimate conversation with you. But your support is integral because you serve as such a great role model for many of them. I think, the sky's the limit. That's what I always tell them. And so I'm just looking forward to a good 1 hour conversation that you have with our trainees. So thank you again, Nancy.
Thank you, Joe. I so appreciate your words and the support of you as our amazing AHA president, and Jade, who is your incredible partner in crime. So thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. And one of the two key points of key objective of our team are, from one side, learning what how can we be good leaders, good next generation leaders, and from another side, and Joe teaches this us every day, is giving back, teaching others. And this is why our events are in the next slide. We can see we have two different types of events. We do these Q&A questions, for example, today's talk, where we invite accomplished leaders to learn from them and from their stories, from their challenges, and from their success. But we also invite high school students to join us, and we make our science accessible to them, and we show them what it really means to be a scientist. And in the next slide, we have the next event, which is the 4th of April with Jennifer Doudna. We will have a breakfast with her. So please register and save the date if you are interested. And I think now we are ready to start. And I'm really so excited, and it's my great honor to introduce you the one that has been named as top woman leader from modern healthcare just last week, the CEO of the most important organization and institution for cardiovascular health, but in general health, Nancy Brown. So thank you so much, Nancy. Let's give her a round of applause. Let's welcome her.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with you all today.
Thank you, thank you. And for the audience online, I would like to explain how we invited Nancy, because it's not super easy, right? So it happened that last year at the SDDS Symposium, which is the Drug Discovery Symposium that every year is hosted here at Stanford. Actually, in April, you're very free to join. We had the really extreme pleasure to meet with Nancy, and we asked her, and we were so fascinated by her captivating and positive energy. And this is why we thought we really want to get her. So we sent her an invite, and it was extremely beautiful for our team. And we were actually celebrating when we got an email replying within a couple of hours. It was extremely great, Nancy, really. And then we thought to send her a nice, as a thank you, a nice big red card, because obviously we know that you, Nancy, like red, right? So we send that. Yeah, right. And then she honored us because she sent back us this beautiful picture that most of you already saw in our socials, and that's a very beautiful way to thank us for the invitation. And Nancy, I'd like to start with a quick question. So our event is divided in a couple of in two sections. Zara, the co-chair of iWISH, and I will ask you a few questions based on what is the feedback that we got online. So we asked our participants to give us questions. So we summarized these questions to be sure to touch a few points that are of interest, and then we will open to the Q&A session to the public. So my first question is, it comes natural, given your really important role and your institutional role, and all the many invitations that you must have on a daily basis, how do you manage to be so accessible?
Thank you for the honor of being here. I do want to comment, first of all, I will answer your question, I promise, but I want to comment on the card that you all sent. I was so moved by that card. It was a beautiful expression of gratitude. And I want to give my gratitude back to each of you who are here today and to everyone who signed the card. Your question is about accessibility. And, I think one of the lessons I learned in life long ago, probably from my mother and father, but certainly, very early in my life, is that the power of happiness comes from relationships. And, in order to live a fulfilled and happy life, that I'm not speaking Italian, am I? I got a message I might be speaking Italian. I wish I knew Italian. I don't know Italian, so I can't dazzle you with my Italian skills. I'll just turn that off. So relationships really matter, and I think that in order to have great relationships, you have to demonstrate the fact that people, are the most important thing. And when someone takes a moment to write to you, whether it's a question, whether it is a concern, whether it's a complaint, which I certainly hear some of, not many, but certainly hear some of at the AHA, the most important thing is to honor the person who has taken time to write to you by calling or writing back. And, that is the basis of how relationships are formed, is connecting with people. And, I've carried that through my many, many years of being in the working world, that to honor other people and to build relationships with other people is to demonstrate respect to other people. And the way you demonstrate respect is to be responsive. I will say in the business world, and certainly in the academic world, sometimes it's really easy to think, oh, I can send this off to someone else and they'll answer for me. I know Tim on my team, my right-hand person in the AHA, Tim Bateman, can attest to this. If I get even complaint letters, I always write back to the person and copy the person who can solve the problem, because often I can't solve the problem. Many times Tim is solving the problems. But it's a sign, it's a very flip person I believe, that doesn't take the time to, communicate and answer and be responsive. And so that's just a personal philosophy I have. And again, I think it's core and central to building relationships, which again is a very strong personal value that I have as part of my value set.
Thank you so much for sharing all these values. That's incredible.
Yeah,
And
thank you for your very detailed response, Nancy. I would like to follow up with your decision to become a CEO or the PED. So we know that you before becoming the CEO of AHA, you had extensive experience in Michigan for the Cancer Foundation and Mercy Hospital, which must surely gave you a set of a diverse skill set. But we are wondering, as early careers, when you first envisioned yourself as a CEO, and what helped you, what influenced you for that vision?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I might be able to best answer that if I give you a little bit of background on my career history and maybe some of the lessons I learned along the way. I'll do it briefly, but I think it will help answer the question. I did have diverse experiences before joining the American Heart Association. And when I joined the American Heart Association, it was not just a job. To me, it was a calling. Like, I remember as a young girl back in the day, you all will not even imagine this, long before mobile phones and, laptops and all the things we take for granted today. One of the ways the American Heart Association raised money is they recruited people in communities to actually go door to door and raise money for the American Heart Association. That was called the Heart Fund. And my mother was an avid Heart Fund volunteer. And I used to go with her door to door and talk to the neighbors and get them to donate money and take the money to the captain and all of these things. So when the opportunity to join the American Heart Association as a young person, in very young in my career came about, I was so excited because I was familiar with the cause. And I have people in my own family who have suffered from strokes, but even back then, grandparents I never met, people whose lives were cut way too short because of issues related to cardiovascular health. And, I got in and the words of my father always are in my mind, even to this day. My father had 4 daughters, and one of the lessons he told all of us is, don't go through life thinking someone else is going to take care of you. You are smart. And if you work hard and if you are diligent about any responsibility you have, anything you want to do, you can do. So it's kind of like Joe's, the sky's the limit, right? Anything you want to do, you can do as long as you work hard and you are diligent in what you do. And so I started at a very low level in the American Heart Association. I was a fundraiser in Michigan. I worked my way up. I became the executive director in Michigan back in the day when we had 56 separate corporations. And I did a good job. I worked hard. I did a good job bringing volunteers into the organization and raising money, and that was recognized. And so I was given the opportunity to apply to be the executive director of what was then the Massachusetts affiliate, which was, for all of you, scientific leaders, you understand the scientific power of the state of Massachusetts, right? And all of the very high profile academic institutions there. I was given the opportunity to apply to become that executive director by the national CEO, who called and asked me if I would apply for that job. And just to give you the dynamic, I was young, maybe 31 or 32 years old. There were 8 final candidates for that job, 7 men and me. All of the one was an external candidate. 6 of the men were internal AHA men over the age of 50, and me. And I thought to myself, I am going to show them that I am the person for this job. Like, I have so much to offer, and I know that I could do a great job here. And I went into that interview process, which at that time in the organization, volunteers picked. So I had like 5 doctors from Harvard and others that were on the board of the AHA that were picking the then executive vice president. And I was selected for the job. And at that moment in my career, there were 56 affiliate executive vice presidents, and each of us had our own company. Like, we were separately incorporated. I ran my own company at 32 or 33 years old. And when you looked around at the other 56, there were 2 other women and nobody but me under the age of 50. And so, at that moment in time, I felt the pressure of performing. Like, I thought to myself, for all the people who are questioning, who is this woman? How did she get this job? And how is she going to do there? The typical kinds of competition you might see in any work environment. I just did nothing but do a good job. I focused on being the best I could be every day. I focused on building relationships with people that mattered. I remembered the advice of my father and mentors before me about what it takes to show up and never worry about how you look, worry about what you do. And, the Massachusetts affiliate at that time hadn't been doing very well, and that's why they had a change in the staff leadership. So when I came in, we really had to build a fundraising program. We had to build, volunteers who were not just medical volunteers, but business volunteers. And my team and I did that. And, we faced a lot of obstacles. We adapted, we overcame, we, built new things, never for the sake of recognition, ever, 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 only for the sake of delivering for the mission of the organization. And, about 2 years after that, there was this national vision to get rid of the separate corporations and just have 15 regions. And so I competed against my peers in all the Northeast states to become the head of the region then up in the Northeast. And I was selected again, to be able to do that. And at that time, we had 15 regional EVPs. I was the only woman. I was still under 40, the only person under the age of 40. And again, our region did a good job. And so, it was sort of around that time, to get to your question about when I thought I might like to be the CEO. I thought to myself, I probably could do additional things to serve the organization. And I didn't spend my life going after those things. I spent my life focusing on doing the best job I could every day and working with my team and helping to elevate people and giving them a chance to shine. It never, ever was about me. It was about the people that I worked with. And I think that is a good sign of leadership, is not making it about yourself, but about making it about other people. And so I'll just fast forward to the end of that story. So the then CEO, Cass Wheeler, invited me to come to the national organization to be his chief operating officer back in late 2000, early 2001. That was about the time Tim came to work for me, by the way. And, my job then was to help centralize a lot of the functions of the AHA from the regions to the national center. And then when he retired in 2008, I became the CEO. My own personal philosophy is that you always have to make it clear to people what it is you would like to do in life. But the minute you make it about yourself and not about other people, you will lose the chance to get what you want in life, because people will see that in you, and it will be a side of you that may not be as attractive for leadership. So, Zara, sorry for the long answer, but I thought that context might be helpful.
Exactly. No, this was great. Actually, hearing about how you encountered all the difficulties, or being the only woman in a pool of men, it's very inspiring, and exactly what we're looking for. Thank you for your answer.
Absolutely. I cannot agree more. And I'd like Nancy to bring a little bit the attention on women health, just because we were discussing about women, right? And as a CEO of AHA, we know that you have recently participated to the really important event, which was organized by the White House to sign the executive order on advancing women's health research. And the goal of this order is to abolish the underrepresentation of women in scientific studies and clinical trials, which all of you know. And we are wondering in which ways has the landscape of healthcare leadership changed for women in your vision, and what the future shifts do you anticipate?
Yeah. It's funny. I did have the honor of participating in the White House event with President and Mrs. Biden on Monday, and I was very honored to be there for the American Heart Association. I will say I go back 20 years ago, and when I was the chief operating officer and with an amazing team of people who work at the AHA and who lead at the AHA, people like Joe, other volunteers. It wasn't Joe at that time, but there were people like Joe. And we recognized that heart disease in women was underrepresented, under-recognized, and that consumers, women, didn't know that heart disease was their greatest health threat. And we set out to do something about that. There was a really pioneering volunteer named Dr. Lori Mosca from Columbia, who was kind of our lead science and medical volunteer, and a really great business volunteer, Karen Murray, who is a fashion executive at that time in New York City, and our team of staff. And we created what we know today as Go Red for Women. We're celebrating our 20th anniversary. And our goal has been to help women, as I said, understand that heart disease is their greatest health threat, but also to change the landscape about how women are cared for in healthcare systems. And because of that, you have to look at who it is that's caring for patients. And, when we look around, especially 20 years ago, and certainly the landscape has gotten better, of how many women and persons of color were in medical school, are in medical school, are the people who will be at the other end of a patient's journey in a healthcare system, we realized there was a lot more we could be doing. And so that has been an integral part of Go Red for Women, whether it's the work we've done with clinical practice guidelines or training physicians about recognizing the signs and symptoms of heart disease in women, or whether it's the strategically focused research network called the Go Red for Women Strategically Focused Research Network that allowed specific studies on women and heart disease to happen. That was a $20 million commitment of the AHA, made even better by a $5 million commitment from a donor, Sally Soder. So $25 million plus $5 million add-on that Sally added on to her contribution for Dr. Judith Hochman at NYU. We've really tried to work hard to make sure that women have an opportunity in science and research, and that women who are patients or consumers get the right care and that their signs are recognized. One of the things I'm most proud of my career are the number of women I have hired and promoted into senior positions, whether they are staff people who work for me, like our chief science and medical officer. Back in 2000 is when we hired our first female chief science and medical officer, Dr. Rosemary Robertson, followed by our second chief science and medical officer, Dr. Marielle Jessup. Most of my executive team are women. And, that's been very purposeful, and it's been something that I've been dedicated so that these exceptional women leaders can help make sure that other exceptional women leaders have opportunities.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. I would like to follow up with another question about maybe how we can contribute to this cause. So as someone at the helm of a major health organization, we are wondering what skills do you think are essential for translating the academic research into public health policies and programs? And what role do you believe the early career scientists, as we are in the whole room and online, what can we do in shaping future organizations like AHA?
What a great question. You know, what comes to my mind when you ask the question is one of my favorite phrases that those of us who are privileged enough to work in the seats that we have, and that includes every single one of you, you know, that where we have a unique opportunity to impact other people's lives, we always have to give a voice to the voiceless. You know, who is it that is the ultimate beneficiary of the work we are doing? And how can we be sure to always represent their needs, their challenges, their desires in the work that we're doing? And I think from a skill set point of view, it's easy to say, oh, you need to be an expert in biostatistics, and, you know, you need to know how to, you know, have this chemistry background, or, you know, these mathematical backgrounds. Those are important skills that to me are kind of like the cost of entry. You can't get to, you cannot be a leader in an organization if you don't have those kinds of skills. But that's just the beginning, it's not the end. And I would say each of you must have those skills, or you wouldn't be in the roles that you're in right now. So the kinds of skills I would focus on are softer skills, you know, empathy, the ability to listen. I talked earlier about relationship building. You know, we have about 3,500 staff people at the AHA, and I'm sure they roll their eyes and, you know, there she goes again. But I always say this, you know, the power of the American Heart Association is that the staff and the volunteers would walk to the end of the earth for each other. Like, you know, the people that work here and the people that volunteer here would do anything for the mission and anything for each other, which then translates into anything for the benefit of the American Heart Association. This has nothing to do with me and everything to do with the AHA. I could pick up the phone right now and call every Joe Wu-like person in America who, you know, is a scientist or a clinician or both, and ask them, could you please help the American Heart Association by doing X, Y, or Z? I can hardly think of a time anyone has said no to me. And has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with the AHA. And I think the skills that make an organization great are all about the people and the relationships. And, you know, I just can't emphasize that enough. You know, a few other things I might mention, you started with this question, you know, the demonstration of valuing other people and what it is they need, the questions they have, the something that's important to them at that moment that may not be important to you at all at that moment. But what is 5 minutes out of your life really? You know, what's 3 minutes out of a day to return a phone call or to answer an email? Really, what is it? It's nothing to you, but perhaps everything to another person. And so I think from a skills point of view, you know, building the softer skills that are leadership oriented skills that work hand in hand with the technical skills that you have to have, the cost of entry skills, are the things I would say to focus on. The other thing I would mention is being a student of what it is you want to be. Like, if you want to run a major organization, do you know how to read a financial statement? You know, how are your presentation skills? Do you know, the power of marketing and branding and those kinds of things that might be important? You know, again, all of you are very busy professionals, but if you have your sights set on something, be a student of the kinds of things it would take to learn something you don't know that might help you get to where you want to go.
Thank you so much. That was so inspirational, Nancy. Thank you. And it's really great because not many times we discuss, I was just thinking, we discuss in scientific presentations or conferences about these soft skills, empathy, listen others, and really take the moment of returning a callback. So thank you for really highlighting these. And this is the perfect moment to do so with us. And I would like to, again, link back with the early career group in the room and also online. There are a lot of postdocs, faculty, and we were just wondering, what are the advices for early career academics that are looking to transition into leadership roles in within a health organization? What are the steps that maybe are to be taken on that direction?
Well, I would say the first step is be clear about what it is you want to do. I think that many early career individuals, whether they're individuals in academic medicine and science and research or individuals in companies, no one can read your mind. You work with the most brilliant people in the world, if you're in science, and that doesn't mean that they have mastered the skill of reading other people's minds yet. Someday that probably will come. So I think you need, each of you need to have your own vision statement for yourself. What is it you want to do? And then to be very purposeful about making sure that the people that can help you get there understand what it is that you want to do. And it should be from your heart, not based on what someone thinks you should do. And I know this from my work with many early career people in, academic medicine, people who are grantees and volunteers of the AHA. I think, mentorship is such an important part of your culture, which is amazing because it needs to be more of a part of a culture of business more than it is, frankly. And I think sometimes as an early career person, there may be a time or two in your life, and maybe some of you can relate to this, where your mentor is telling you what they think you should do versus asking you what you think you should want, or what it is that you want. And, I think oftentimes that's because mentors see things in people that people may not see in themselves. And so, a great mentor is always pressing you to do more. They're pressing you to do exactly what Joe Wu has said, which is the sky is the limit. And so always listen to your mentor and always make it clear to those that you're mentoring what it is you would like to do. That's number one. Number two is go figure out what are the skills, the experiences, the relationships you need to have to do that. So if you want to run a public health organization, let's say it's a foundation focused on health, or maybe you'd like to come and work at the American Heart Association, or, we have a huge department of scientists and people that work with the AHA every day. Volunteer for that organization. Go find out more about the organization and the kinds of things that might be available. And contribute. Again, people recognize, this is one of the reasons I went through my leadership journey in so much detail earlier. People will form opinions not by what you say, but by what you do. And so, when you find an organization that you might like to be involved with, ask how you can help. Go attend meetings, do things that give you perspective and visibility. And then finally, reach for the stars. You all are destined for a track for greatness. I mean, you've already come so far in your education and in your training and in your skill set. You do need to reach for the stars. The sky is the limit, and be willing to ask questions and be purposeful in your intent of pursuing your dreams.
Thank you so much. And that's a great way to actually link with the open questions. Nancy was saying, ask questions. So guys, now we can open the Q&A session. And I already see a raised hand, maybe it's for the prize, right? that we have at the end. So we have our microphone going to...
And for the online participants, please just raise your hand if you have a question and we'll admit you.
Yeah, hi. I'm wondering, sparked by what you said earlier, how you divide, you said you're doing a lot of things yourself, you're kind of answering emails, but I can also imagine you must get a lot of emails and a lot of messages. So how did you learn to kind of delegate, or how do you know what you want to do yourself? And yeah, how do you maintain this maybe even life work balance, that you're not doing everything at this point in your career anymore? And I was wondering if you comment a bit on that.
Yeah. Boy, that's the $1 million question. I get that question a lot from people not having nothing to do with me, but this question of being fully devoted to the things that matter to you, which include faith, family, community, and work. Those are my 4 things that really matter to me. And my father, I'm speaking a lot about my father today. I don't know why. He always used to say, only touch a piece of paper once, Nancy, when I was growing up and, helping him with business oriented things. And so I think that, being efficient matters, being willing to call the question. Like I do get an enormous amount of emails a day, many things where people saying, could you just review this? Is this in the right tone? Here's, especially when it comes time to things relating to our board or to our leadership volunteers, we're having a big, meeting, look at this agenda, blah, blah, blah. You could spend your life looking at things. And so I am a person that's very organized. I try to only touch a piece of paper once. I'm very definitive in what I like and don't like, so I'm never afraid to say, this is perfect, send it out, or make this change, and then it's good to go. And I surround myself with people I trust and who trust me. And so I am, I could never do my job if I had to look at everything the AHA did. So if you have confidence in the people who you work for, who work with you, and if you hire people who are smarter than you and more creative than you, then my gosh, it's an easy way to be able to balance it all. I would say that I think that it's also really important, because you're right. Like, could I sit at my computer 24 hours a day and answer people, and then they answer back, and then you answer them, and then it goes back and forth? Absolutely. But you just have to be willing to draw the line, and prioritize and look at the things that really matter today. Just because someone wants to talk to you about something next September, because it matters to them, you have to validate back to them, thank you so much. I know how important this is. I hope you'll, cut me a break here, because I've really got to focus on getting this done right now. But I promise you, what you need from me is top of mind. Those kinds of words matter to people. So that's what I would say: efficiency, decisiveness, and only today's piece of paper is an email, right? The virtual piece of paper, only try to not dwell on it and write 5 drafts and keep going back to it. That kind of thing can take up a lot of time.
Great. Other questions? Oh, we have so many. We will.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. I was just wondering if you have ever experienced in your career that you were discriminated directly or indirectly because you're a woman, and if so, how did you overcome it?
Yeah. I have to say, I have been very fortunate. I have never felt something as strong as discrimination. And so, again, I feel very confident and comfortable in saying that. That being said, I have been very aware. Early in my career, I mentioned on purpose, the fact that there were many times I was the only woman. And, back at that time when I got that job in Massachusetts in 1995 or whatever year that was, there were several of the men of the AHA who were saying things like, who is this upstart and what does she have to offer? Like, why did she get this job over, these gentlemen who wanted the job? I wouldn't call that discrimination. I would call that, at that time, that was their reality. And how I chose to respond to that was by showing them that I was very capable, and perhaps more capable than them, because look who got to be the CEO of the AHA and who didn't, But I have not experienced things like sexual harassment or any of those kinds of things ever in my life, but I've always have been aware that that I had differences from some of the other leaders in the HA. I was telling Joe this just the other day. We were in Japan together. I don't even know what we were talking about. And I said to him, something about this time earlier in my career. And I used to just think to myself, I'll show them. I will show them. And again, this is like what we do and produce, not what we say, not, anything, but hard work, diligence, results, relationships. At the end of the day, that's what gets things done. And that's what gets you noticed.
Thank you so much. We have a question. And
Hello,
after
hi. It's Charmaine. So good. Thank you so much for your very inspiring talk and all the wisdom you've shared with us. Until today, I noticed that, in top level positions, it's still dominated by men. And I think people are starting to recognize that women are as capable. But I do hear sometimes I do hear that, oh, like when you, for example, in your example, when you said that you talk directly to your team to say, oh, I don't like this, but some teams might see that as being aggressive, even though if it comes if a man was saying that, they wouldn't see that as aggressive. So how do you kind of balance that, being a woman and trying to be a leader? Thank you.
Yeah. Your question, how you ever get a flashback, in your head, when you were asking your question, I was flashing back in my head to a time around, the late 1990s when I had just become the EVP of one of the 15 regional EVPs of the HA. And in corporate America, we have something called 360 reviews. Do you all have those in academics where, other people are providing feedback on your leadership skills? And I remember sitting down with the national CEO at that time, and we were going through the results of my 360 review. And there were, it was a fine 360 review, it wasn't bad, but there were a couple of things in there that spoke to my directness, how many questions I asked. And the word aggressive wasn't used. It was more about directness and firmness. And I'm curious by nature. Like I could have been a scientist like all of you. Like I always have questions in my mind. Why not this? What about this? And so, Tim, who's on this call, and others who work with me know I ask a lot of questions. It's not because I don't trust. It's because I really want to know, I'm really interested in knowing. And at that time, those three things came out like on this scale of being like really strong attributes that maybe were seen as not desirable. And my CEO at that time said, it may be that you want to, just, grade that down a little bit, shade that down a little bit. And without missing a beat, I don't even know why I did it. I said, would you tell X and so person who was an EVP at that time to do that if it was on his 360? And the CEO said, you know what, you're absolutely right, I wouldn't. And so I think that you have to be true to who you are. Like, you can't fake your way to leadership. You are who you are. And we all have to learn how to soften ourselves a little in certain situations and hone our softer skills and be really ready for self-improvement. But at the end of the day, by nature, I'm a direct person. I ask a lot of questions, and I've learned not to do it all the time. Like an executive coach at that exact moment in my career told me once, Nancy, sometimes when you have questions, here's what you need to do. Physically take your hands and sit on them. Like physically sit on your hands as a sign to yourself to just back off a little. And so to this day, I sit on my hands when the question I want to ask doesn't really matter at that moment. Because, I've learned that you have to give air and space to other people. And that means not always asking so many questions. So I don't know. I think I've talked around your question, but I am a big proponent on the fact that overly aggressive and obnoxious is never good. But we are all paid to do a job. Like, I am aggressive in a good way and definitive and decisive because I'm trying to save people's lives. Like, that's every day I come to work because people are counting on me to get the business of the American Heart Association done. I'm not like doing this to carpet the CEO's office in red carpet or something. Like, I'm trying to save people's lives here. So I will personally never apologize for being what some might appear to be aggressive. And I hope that through my life, I've honed it in a way that people see it as persistence, not aggressiveness.
There is one question online. I would like to just read it very quick, and we have one more question in the audience. Judith asked, how did you overcome any self-doubt and gain the confidence it takes to execute your role?
Oh, what a good question. I think every one of us as human beings, there are times that we feel so sure of what we should do or how we should handle a situation, and other times where we have a little bit of doubt, and a doubt about ourselves or doubt about how to handle something in particular. And, I've always believed that intuition is an important part of having confidence, and confidence is an important part of being an effective leader. And we all make mistakes every day. I've probably made 10 mistakes already today. I don't even know what half of them are. Someday someone will point them out to me. And, short of, doing surgery on a person or giving a patient advice that might be wrong, like, you don't ever want to be wrong there. But for lots of the kinds of decisions we have to make in life, so if you made a mistake today, you might be able to fix it a little bit later. So you just have to have confidence in yourself and stand by what you believe in. And that, I think, helps over time to get that nagging self-doubt out of your mind.
That's great. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for sharing all your experiences and also your career path, which has been very successful. So I was wondering, have you also experienced some setbacks in your career? And what advice would you give to us if we not succeed? We put in the work, we do the best that we can, and we still don't get the job. How to handle these situations?
Yeah. Disappointment is part of life. And I think that if for any of us, and I certainly have had my share of things I had hoped to get and haven't gotten, whether it's personally or professionally, you have to take a moment to understand in that situation, why did that happen? There's a woman I mentor, not at all in medicine or healthcare, in a whole different business aspect of life, who recently thought she was confident she was getting this job, like she was about to put her house on the market. And she learned yesterday that she didn't get this job. And I spoke with her last evening for quite a bit of time. And I said to her, tell me how you're feeling, what have you learned? What have you learned from this? And how can you just take this experience and prepare for the next time around? Because there's always a next time, and I think that being mad or angry or feeling that the world is against you and that's why you didn't get something that you quote deserved, that's one state of mind that is kind of, in my opinion, will lead you on a spiral of not being able to be successful in getting what you want. Optimism, self-awareness, reflection, and learning from situations is kind of what I've done in life. When something hasn't worked the way I've wanted it to work, I've always forced myself. I write things down. I have like a journal, and I'll think to myself, what are the things that maybe didn't go the way they should have here? And what is my role for me in making that better for next time? And what have I learned about myself? And how can I improve so that next time I can position myself a little differently for this situation? The other thing, depending on the situation, is to ask for feedback, true feedback, not like, I can't believe I didn't get this job, tell me why, but a statement like, I'm really dedicated to advancing my career, and I hope you'd be willing to give me some feedback on what skills and experiences would better equip me for next time around, period. And then listen, and don't be defensive when someone tells you something you might not want to hear about yourself. You know, you've got to be open to it.
Thank you so much, Nancy. While there is the microphone, it's really inspirational to hear a lot about resilience, and also I really liked the sentence that there is always the next opportunity. So it gives a lot of hope for all of us to be next leaders in this way. So we have another question. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for the inspiring talk. I'm going to speak from Silicon Valley entrepreneur spirit. So I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor who benefit a lot from music, dance, and art, and started a company that is a patented AI telehealth platform focused on patients who are stuck at home like myself, or elderly like my mom. My mom has atrial fibrillation. So I was super excited when I learned there's a UK study published by University of Australia that indicating out of 48,000 patients survey over 20 years, dancing reduced cardiovascular death by 46%. And my question as a first-time entrepreneur, driven by passion, and then now being educated by this very powerful data, and obviously the first organization I think about is AHA. So can you give us some idea if there are, you know, whether it's organizational entrepreneur like to learn how to collaborate with AHA, what are some of the, you know, process? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, as a huge lover of the arts myself, and I come from a family of people in the arts, especially in music, I think that music and dance and art, you know, create such a state of mind, don't they? A state of mind of peace and harmony and happiness, which when you're a person who has a diagnosis, you know, peace and harmony really matter. And so congratulations on your company and the kind of work that you're hoping to bring to other people. I'm sure you will spread a lot of joy to a lot of people. We have done many things to help companies, and we're about to do many more things. I can give you a preview of a couple of things. First of all, we have a Center for Health Technology and Innovation at the AHA. As a matter of fact, the chairperson, the volunteer chairperson of this center is Stanford's, now Weill Cornell's very own Dr. Bob Harrington, your former chairman of medicine, who's a member of my board, is the chairperson of this group. And one of the things we have in the Center for Health Technology is called the Innovators Network. And the Innovators Network allows startups to connect with each other and with the American Heart Association in a formal way. And it's actually quite easy to get connected to the AHA's Innovators Network. And one way we could do that is we could send a link out to you, or you could write to me separately, and I'll connect you with Patrick Waite, who is the staff person who leads our Center for Health Technology and Innovation. That's kind of one thing that we do, and it's very central to our mission. We also have recently formed a unit of the AHA called AHA Ventures. And in the AHA Ventures space, in addition to our existing venture capital fund, Cardiation Capital, we intend to create a women's fund, and we intend to create a something called a venture studio, where we are helping to connect people with the resources they need to start companies. So those are a couple of things that we do, but I really applaud you for your interest and for bringing your personal experiences to a platform that can help so many other patients.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for this answer. And I think Mike has dropped the link into the chat for the people who are interested in this collaboration with AHA. And if you're interested, I can also forward this link to you if you reach out to us. And thank you so much for all these questions, Nancy. I think we already have reached to end of our session. Maybe we can move on to our very last question, and then we can close after.
Yes, so it's an easy one. We were wondering, Nancy, how what if you can describe with one word your experience here with the iWISH, what that would be?
Inspired. I am so inspired by all of you. The thing that you have up on the screen right now is part of a several-page document on iWISH. And I read it, and I thought to myself, this group of leaders has it together. Like, you know, so many of the things I spoke about, you know, being purposeful in your mission and going after what it is you want in life. I mean, you're demonstrating that by having iWISH talks. And I think that it's, you know, for me, I look at that and say the future of the world is in great hands. I am very inspired by all of you.
Thank you so much, and I would like to really thank you with all our heart.
It's been an honor for me to spend this time with you today. Thank you for the invitation.